Good morning, everyone. I'm Joanna from session. Market Asia. Excited to have Mr. Mike Williams and Mr. as our speakers. Invite Mrs. Director of the team to the
Good day, our distinguished guests and friends from the industry. Thank you so much for joining us here today to explore the mice market in Asia Pacific. It's our honor to have Mr. Mike Williams, Senior Partner of King Ash from Australia, and Ms. Esther Ng, Southeast Asia Business Development Manager of King Ash from Singapore, to share their insights on the latest mice market trend in Asia Pacific and give us inspirations to plan our future business strategies. I hope today's training section can fill your day with new thoughts and ideas on how to energize your business or events. Last but not least, wish you all a pleasant day. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody to today's session. I'm Mike Williams from Gaining Edge. I speak with me today is Esther Ng. Esther's going to commence the presentation to talk about the Southeast Asian market. But I want to give you a bit of background about Esther beforehand. Esther's been in this business for over 25 years, so she's a bit of a veteran in the mice market, working in the Southeast Asian market. She's had her own company representing hotels in Southeast Asia and Australia, targeting the travel mice industries in Singapore, Malaysia. She's also a mice consultant for multinational corporate companies, managing their annual conferences, mostly in Southeast Asia and China. And she's been consulting with Gaining Edge for quite a few years as well, helping us with a number of key accounts in Korea, Japan, and Africa. I'm going to hand over to Esther to start. But before we do start talking about the Southeast Asian market, I'd like to run a bit of a poll. I'll ask Nigel to put up a poll just to get a bit of an indicator of your interest and activity level in the Southeast Asian market. So, Nigel, could you please put up the first poll question? There it is. If you complete the question for the next 10 seconds, then we'll show the results. So the question is, which of the following markets do you actively market to in Southeast Asia? Okay, the results. Looks like Singapore, a big market, Malaysia and Thailand. And quite a few are looking at the future as well. Okay. We've got a second question coming up as well. If we could poll the second question, please, Nigel. This question is, which of the following markets are you currently receiving mice inquiries from? Okay, it looks like Singapore, Malaysia, the two key markets, nothing for Thailand or Indonesia. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for that. I'll now hand over to Esther for a briefing on the Southeast Asian market, and at the end of this section, we'll do a short Q&A. So if you've got any questions, please put your questions on the chat box during Esther's session, and we'll bring those questions up at the end of the event. There were also some questions that were raised when we registered, and we'll cover most of those during the presentation. So over to you, Esther.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, hi everybody. I'm Esther, covering my main market that I cover is actually Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam recently. So I'm going to share with you feedbacks that I have received from the key agents, the mice agents in Southeast Asia. I've spoken to a few and I've compiled it in my presentation. So I would, if there's any questions after that, you can ask me and I will try to answer them according to the market's response on Macau. So the current market status in terms of mice like my leisure groups have started to travel from October. In fact, in some other countries like Indonesia, they've started much, much earlier. And corporates also have started running incentive campaigns and rewards overseas trips. During the COVID, a lot of the rewards are actually more monetary. These rewards are very effective because many have not traveled for 3 years at least. So group sizes vary from 30 right to 1,000, subject to availability of flights. So flights availability is very, very important. I have had a group that I know from Malaysia that's gone to Japan since it opened, and it's 1,400 people. And the thing is, what they do is they will split, right? They will split the group size, but availability of flights is so important. Travel pattern have also changed. Those of the days, the short incentives are like 4 nights, but now you have a minimum of 5 nights. And I also noticed in the feedback as I gathered, there are a lot of the destinations are longer haul, like to Europe. And then lately, when Tokyo is open, it's also due to the currency exchange. As the example, a lot of insurance companies are heading down to Europe. Many people have not shopped for the longest time. So, shopping is actually a shopping destination is actually key nowadays. So due to the slow economy, many aggressive campaigns are also being launched to push up sales. So there are more the multi-level companies. Because the campaigns are being launched, as more countries are open, we expect to see in Q1 of 2023 a lot more movement in the MICE travel industry. This comment came especially from Thailand. Conference organizers in the corporate and meeting sector, because they include international participants, they are a bit slow as many are still holding hybrid meetings and also holding back on their travel expenses. So a lot of them are actually doing more, taking care of their current business, their own company business. So many meeting planners are not ready to actually plan any meetings. But I see Q1 of 2023, this will pick up because normally sales meetings are in the first quarter. Yes. So current COVID restrictions that impact the outbound MICE market. As you know, many countries have lifted their COVID restrictions around the world, and although some countries still require travelers to download tracking apps and all that, so this will be a hindrance. Entry to Macau has always been via Hong Kong, because Macau is like a twin destination, right? So either it's Hong Kong or it's Guangzhou. So now actually you're restricted to the availability of transportation, flights and ferry for this present moment. Ability of direct flights to Macau is also a big challenge because not many big planes, right? And the capacity of seats are actually very low. So Macau in the short to medium term, what markets should they prioritize? So Macau enjoy a good location, being close to Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, even Guangzhou. So it's a melting pot of cultures, right? You've got different cultures, good food and history, including the Portuguese ancestors. I think that is a key. Most people recognize Macau as, the Portuguese influence, especially like in the older part of Macau. So a lot of itineraries include those. Even advertisements, you always get them including that as an attraction. It also has a variety of venues and meeting space for incentive designers, conference organizers, and planners. So in that respect, it is an interesting itinerary. Promotional packages, post-COVID, what Macau can offer to MICE? I think at this present, as mentioned, MICE will probably be more leisure. The big conventions and all that is not really happening as yet. You should also, I suggest, confirm trips to invite key MICE meeting planners and corporations. First, really the travel agents. For if you can stretch it out, you should also invite actually the corporates, because the corporates are the decision makers. If they are aware of what's happening, they would then ask their agent to say, why don't we look at Macau? And then, of course, gradually also to the associations, because these are the people that give you the big conferences and conventions. So Macau's strength and weakness. Again, the strength is your unique background, your distinct identity with a Portuguese background, because in Southeast Asia, no countries can say that they've got this background, right? The history. And then you also got beautiful historic architecture. And then your amazing city of lights entertainment. So Macau is always related to the nearer part of Las Vegas. There is a great blend of modern, right? You've got a long list of modern hotels that can offer inventory for meeting facilities. Your weakness is you do not have enough great activities or experience for visitors to stay long. So most itineraries, and this I've actually checked with the respective Southeast Asia countries, most of your itineraries that is Macau is normally twin destination. People may stay 2 nights if they're interested in casinos as well at night. The most 3. 3 is actually really a stretch. So it's usually, as I mentioned, combined with other cities. For the Vietnamese, which I'm a bit surprised that the Vietnamese market is not in the poll, that you do not many have not really stretched out to the Vietnamese market, but the Vietnamese market comes through Guangzhou quite a bit, and they do stay because, as you know, the Vietnamese do enjoy their casinos. So Thailand, Indonesia would probably go through Hong Kong. Your bigger venue for MICE off-site dinner, especially if you stress about your Portuguese descent, your Macanese restaurants, you don't have that. I can say that because before COVID, I had 2 events, because I manage events. I had 2 events, about 180, and the other event was about 120 to Macau. And I had a lot of challenge trying to do an off-site dinner, because, every meeting would always include welcome, your closing, which may have to be in the hotel, but you always have an off-site dinner. It was so difficult to get, because the good restaurants, you have to book way in advance. It's not big enough to hold a big group. So that, I think, is one of the biggest challenge in Macau. As I mentioned, most are very small and difficult to build. An average MICE group would be easily from 50 to 180. That's an average meeting group. A leisure group can start from smaller, maybe 30, right? Another comment is your land tour is very expensive. It's one of the highest among Asia countries. This feedback came from Indonesia. So did the Vietnamese say the same thing. And generally, everybody mentioned. And I can say to attest to that as well. I mean, I understand, like, for example, your buses, are all, it's driven only by your own, your own people. And if the hours extended or if it's over the weekend, they are paid double rate. So I think a lot of conditions do make it a bit more expensive. Right? Your hotel weekend rates are doubly high, and that's may not be a good thing, because a lot of meetings that happens in the weekdays, right? Most meetings would be like conventions or conferences. It's a weekday, like Monday to a Friday. And then normally in most destinations, people will extend. But in your case, people will leave and go to Hong Kong to extend because your weekend rates are very expensive. And extensions are normally on their own account. Okay. Next, please. Nigel. Important consideration for choosing destinations since COVID. The biggest consideration is flight availability and reasonable airfares. The airfare component is actually the largest in a itinerary, a package. Airfares have gone up really right to about 100%, especially when you booked it much later. So competitive pricing by suppliers, hotel and local operator plays a very important role because most meeting planners will try to see how they can package their package competitively. So the competition actually is really based on pricing post-COVID. Your unique venues and program, meaning that they must present a different program to make it attractive, especially it's an evergreen destination. So the suppliers, the land operator, the suppliers, including the hotel, must really be, in this case nowadays, be more creative. Giving back that program that they used to sell pre-COVID is not going to work. Availability of partners in tourism, travel, events, hospitality, staffing, financial background, the stability is also a big challenge, especially post-COVID. A lot of employees have left, and a lot of new employees are in the hotels, for that matter, in the events and hospitality industry. So you need to be very well informed because you are actually dealing with meeting planners that's very experienced and expecting a lot more because they have to please their customers as well. So I think it is important, as you have new staff, that they should be trained really quickly. Great importance is also placed on special language, especially like Vietnam and Thailand, even Indonesia, because these are non-English speaking. So guides must be well-versed, guides that is speaking this language. And actually what is very important now is the expectation that the guides be aware of safety procedures in case of emergencies, like somebody got COVID, you know, what is the next step they must do. I think this is also something that is at the back of the mind of organizers, because if anything, their main concern is that if the country is not ready or the agency that they are dealing with is not ready to do that, that will be a very big headache for them. Next, conference planners normally work directly with the hotel and the DMC for special teams and equipment. So these are conference, they will really deal directly with the hotel. It's only the leisure groups that will deal with the local handling agent, the local operators. For bigger groups, they normally would seek assistance from the bureau, whether it's the tourist or the convention bureau for subvention program. Subvention program is key post-COVID. Every event organizer would ask what is the subvention program of the country, because it does help to bring down the cost of the package. What market approach should Macau take to develop business from Southeast Asia? As I mentioned, creation of experience is very important to reintroduce the destination and to attract corporates and MICE planners when they compare with another destination. So, as I mentioned, flight availability is first main consideration, right? And offering a new program, something interesting, is also very important. So what you need to do is, as mentioned, you have to formulate and tailor-make market development plan, promotion policies in details of each MICE market, because different MICE market expects different things. Like the Vietnamese, the Thai, you do a lot with Singapore. Singapore is mainly conferences, Malaysia, and then Indonesia. So for example, the Indonesians and the Malaysians have a restriction, a limitation in terms of the casino. You cannot sell them the casino because basically as a Muslim, they're not supposed to go into casinos. So you must be able to sell different things. Halal restaurants is so important for Indonesians and Malaysians. So availability of such things and where it's located, size, should be put into your marketing development plan. You establish regular short online programs to sell your new destinations, whether it's a hotel or some place that's happening, some events. I think this is very important to reach out, to show how different are you now. So you can itemize accordingly, like food, what kind of Michelin star and what kind of restaurants that come up post-COVID. Your hotels, you have renovated, what's new, your unique venues for outdoor and indoor, and new team building programs. It's actually very important as an organizer, meeting planner. It is actually for the hotel or the ground operator to actually showcase successful events that you have handled. A lot of hotels don't do that, because that shows what you are capable of. So like taking photos of events that you have done is very important, because then I will know what kind of staffing you have, what kind of props that you can do and you have. This would then help the meeting planners to then tailor their program as well. This online live program that I was mentioning can actually be open to all levels of staff in Southeast Asia, with the agents as well as with the corporates. So you may have operations staff or the salespeople that's going out there to do their pitching, or the corporate planner that's going to decide which location they want to do their meetings. So you can tailor-make actually your online programs to target different sectors of employees. Then you can also do a Q&A, because different markets have different expectations. So in the Q&A, they can pose you questions. You will understand them, where they are coming from, what is their concerns or their importance. And very often, a lot of people that attend, they like to be incentivized with some points to redeem some rewards. That it's a incentive actually to make them come and attend your presentation. And in Thailand and Indonesia, we always translate in local language. You'll be surprised, Thailand and Vietnam, the market, most of the Asians, especially the older ones, don't speak English. The younger ones may come through with English. So post-COVID, for product updates purpose, fam trips should be more frequent, and you can invite agents. You can also extend it out to corporate decision makers. Fam trips, many countries, as soon as they're open, have started doing fam trips, because I've invited before, and many are busy, with so many fam trips to select from. And also, since October, many meeting groups, not so much meeting groups, groups that have postponed pre-COVID, have all started to travel. So a lot of agents are actually very busy. And A fam trip, if it's not interesting or not productive for them, it's not seen as a free trip. And in a fam trip, you would like to invite the high-ranking, the decision makers, the salespeople that's out there teaching. It's not a holiday trip. What are the best promotional channels for reaching the Southeast Asia market? Tourism roadshow, especially post-COVID, a lot of agents are going for tourism roadshow because the face-to-face, you can educate them on your latest promotion or whatever you have. But actually, what's more important is in going to a tourism roadshow, you are meeting the planners. Many have changed, many have left the industry, and a lot of new people are coming in. So whatever the data you have of the various agencies may now be obsolete because new people have come into the picture. And also your face-to-face, you will understand and know where are they looking at, what the destinations they are looking at, and also be able to share. You'll be able to share what was the thing that made them decide on the destination. So I think you get a lot more when you have a face-to-face. Your Macau suppliers must also be present with the roadshow, promoting the venues and destinations. Because this will give you communication, and the people that meet the suppliers will have a trust, will, oh, okay, yeah, this agent is very willing to compromise, to do things, you're able to build that sort of understanding. I think suppliers too now, post-COVID, need to come out as well to show that they have changed, right? They have, they're enthusiastic for business. Those were the days when business is very good. Suppliers can just sit and, and expect people to come to them. E-newsletters for corporates, regular e-newsletters and updates to corporates, and multi-level, the MNCs, the Fortune 500 updates. So these people are more for meetings. So you can update on your meeting facilities, especially unique venues and happenings. It's something they're looking for, not just that this is the hotel, these are the rooms and what I have. I think that's easily available when they go onto the website. But creating new, giving them pictures and things like that is of what you have done, new teams is, or what new equipments you have is actually very important. What is very lacking nowadays is direct sales call, actually knocking door and visiting the organizers, the decision makers. And at this point, besides selling the hotel, for example, if it's a hotelier that goes, you are able also then to offer your subvention program. So I think what's important is all suppliers, right, of the destination, whether it's a hotel, the meeting planner, need to understand and work closely with the bureau and know what kind of subvention program is being offered to their customers to attract them to come to Macau. This is very important post-COVID. Who do you see as Macau major competition for MICE business? Currently, if I look at Asia countries, Taiwan, because they just opened, and Korea, because they're about the same cost. If you compare as a meeting planner, when you look at the destination, it is your competitor is not your neighboring hotel. The first competition is destination. Destination competition would always be about cost. For example, if I do a 4 night in Macau, Taiwan, Korea, it would be about the same rate. So these are the countries that I would compare in terms of even traveling time, not Singapore to Taiwan, Korea, Macau, or travel time because you're roughly about the same. And then who has more to offer in terms of experience? Food, food is always very important, right? For an organizer, giving the food is always the point of complaints and compliment. Sightseeing, what are the sightseeing that you can present? Macau is quite small. I know the sightseeing is quite the same. So you need to sort of team it to make it interesting. Easy access, flight frequency is very, very important. So at this point for Macau, you may have a little bit of restriction, but I think as it opens, you have very good accessibility because now you've got the bridge across as well. So although your flights may not be a lot, but the surrounding cities nearby has got very good airports and a lot of flights. So Singapore, if you are going for casinos, Singapore is your big competitor because Singapore got better shopping, better dining variety because we are multicultural, new and updated entertainment and places of interest. We have many new entertainment that's coming up, that's ongoing. I think that's something that a repeat customer would want to have. Easy access, we have lots of light frequencies, being the center. And our attractive subvention program. Singapore has one of the best subvention programs for very small groups to very big groups. And the hotels in Singapore are very aggressive. You ask for a quotation, they will straight away tell you about the subvention program. Is subvention an important consideration to attract business to a destination? Definitely. Competition of destination is very harsh post-COVID. The client's consideration is always about the cost of the package, as I mentioned earlier. Budget is tight because a lot of the budget has actually gone to the airfare, which is something that you cannot compromise because the airfare is, is the highest component, is a must. And incentive groups will not go on the budget airline unless that's the only flight going into that destination, right? So they would expect a full-fledged carrier. Every bit of support or funding or complementary offering can be a game changer in deciding a destination. A simple, precise, attainable subvention package is very important. Why do I say that? If you have a very complicated one, I think your own people don't even know how to push it. And to a meeting planner, if it's very confusing, then they cannot calculate how this can help in their budget or in their packaging. Okay. What kind of support, subvention is required to attract MICE business from Southeast Asia to Macau? Again, we talk about the subvention, right? So most countries, they actually tier base it based on number of people. Actually, it's more number of room nights, right? Room nights and the different gifts that you give if they hit a certain room night. So monetary support is always what a MICE planner wants, the meeting planner. Like in Singapore, you can have a group as small as 30, but we give vouchers, we give voucher, the voucher can be used in the shopping areas. The voucher goes direct to the client, right? The client gets to use the voucher. And I think the client then sees it, right? Sees the value. So monetary support in terms of vouchers from USD from 10 to 50. And if the group, so your gifts, some also give gifts. And I noticed with gifts, a lot of meeting planners sometimes ask, is there any branding possibility? Could they put their logo together with the gifts? And I think that would be a plus if you can do that. Welcome performance at the airport arrival. So that's quite a common subvention as well. Entertainment during dinners, that's also very common and very important. If you could even go as far as listing out, that means already having a list of all the different entertainments that is going to be in your subvention program performances, that will actually be easier. It cuts down that communication time as well. Fast track clearance and immigration, especially when there are VIPs or the group is arriving all on the same flight. Clearing immigration, very quickly is actually a very important consideration for the organizers. And if the meeting planner can do that, they'll make their client very happy. And most meeting planners will want to keep back their client, right? So anything that helps to enhance their image and the happiness of the organizers make a big difference. And also with COVID, right? I think safety is still always on people's mind. Sponsored inspection visits, as in van trips, right? What happens is, if you've got a group of say 1,000 room nights, then of course the group, it would mean that the group size will be more than 500. If I take an average of 3 nights for meetings, they would want to inspect not just the hotel, the venue, and also know what's happening on the ground way before. So a sponsored site inspection, for example, for the meeting planner and the organizer that she's bringing around. And often than not, this sponsored inspections would be before a decision is made, because this sponsored inspection subvention is to entice, right, to the decision maker to decide on your venue, on your country, on Macau. So yeah, so that is the few key things that I think it's very important if you are looking at attracting business into Macau. So a simple, precise, attainable, and clearly understood subvention package is very important.
Hey, Esther, thank you for that. Listen, we have to move on. We might leave Q&A until the end, because we've got another presentation to get through, but thank you for that. And if anybody's got any questions,
thank you. Yeah,
please add them to the chat box. So thank you, Esther. Okay, I'm just going to put up my presentation. You can. Give me 1 second, please. Okay. So I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into the Australia-New Zealand market. And to do this, we've actually done some interviews with a number of major players in Australia and New Zealand, and asked them about the current market situation, also what their views are and perceptions are of Macau and what potential there is for Macau. So I'll share these views with you today. We'll kick off by just sort of talking about just the current market status. 2022 is turning out to be a boom year for the particularly Australian market, probably a little bit less so for the New Zealand market. Corporate event bookings are up 40% for 2022-23, so the market is definitely bouncing back. RFP activity is up 14%, and that's higher than 2019. So there's been a huge pent-up demand. The main focus has been over the last 12 months has been very much the domestic market, but that is shifting towards the international destinations as domestic destinations are coming to capacity. There's actually quite a number of places and destinations in Australia that you can't actually get to because you can't get accommodation or flights. So the interest is starting to shift very much overseas. So there's been a surge in business event activity across most sectors. Excuse me. So all sectors are seeing a boom. The only industry that's having a bit of a hard time at the moment is the automotive industry, only because they've had a massive impact on supply chains. So it's very hard to sell product that you don't actually have any supply of. So the automotive industry has been a bit slower than others. It's not back to pre-pandemic levels, but it's certainly heading that way very fast. Corporates have no clear strategy other than being keen to get back in touch with customers, clients, and team members. So that's why they're very keen to create more face-to-face opportunities overseas. There's a higher focus on performance recognition, and there's definitely a massive compression taking place. So there's high demand and limited product available. So a lot of destinations are being chosen based on direct air access and availability of accommodation. The New Zealand market is coming back a bit slower than Australia, and that's because they were in more lockdown mode than Australia was for some time. And Air New Zealand, for example, is only back to 65% of its previous capacity. So there's very limited direct connections. So they're choosing destinations where there are direct connections. There's been a massive hike in pricing for airfares and accommodation, which is causing some concern. But the budgets are roughly the same. And when you've got high accommodation and airfare costs, there's less investment going on the ground because of these costs. The planning times are certainly shorter. We're seeing groups of that are booking within 1 to 3 months. There was a group that's going to Thailand, I think, for 700 passengers that was booked within 3 months. And there's a lot of quick decision making taking place, and that's partly because of also trying to negotiate deals and securing room blocks and air tickets. You've got to make decisions fairly quickly on air and accommodation within a short time frame. Otherwise, that accommodation and air capacity may not be there. So a lot of planners having actual trouble getting access to airfares, to air access or direct flights. There's certainly a shift for incentives to multi-tier incentives. So what they're doing is creating more tiers of smaller groups to multiple different destinations. So the groups could be as small as 20 to 30 and going to different destinations. So they instead of having the traditional 1 or 2 tiers, they've got 3 to 4 tiers. Group sizes are definitely smaller, 50 packs or below, mostly. And they find that these smaller groups are actually achieving better outcomes and better networking opportunities, and they're looking into access more exclusive access to more boutique style hotels that can take over the entire hotel. That's a very important consideration, particularly with Macau, because you've got so many big hotels. If you've got a small group, how do you give them this level of exclusivity? Sustainability has been a big media topic for some time. And although it's a consideration, it's not a key criteria. However, if they're deciding between 2 different hotels, they will normally choose the hotel that has better sustainability practice than the other. And it's quite often a deciding factor if the pricing and everything else is roughly the same. There is a shift from just pure incentives to what they call global gatherings to re-engage with employees, distributors and clients, because they haven't been speaking or seeing each other for a number of years. This re-engagement is becoming really important. So there's a greater interest in things like teams getting together, socialising, networking, team building. Now the challenge in the Australian market in particular, not so much in New Zealand, is that a lot of employees are working at home 2 or 3 days a week. And so the meeting planners or the corporates are actually using these events to get those teams back together and get them to network, bond and build relationships. One of the things they're looking for these programs is more free time for participants. That's one way of them cutting back costs. The duration is roughly the same of 4 to 5 days. And hybrid events have actually started to fall out of favour while virtual events remain useful. And quite often virtual events are used as a pre-runner to an overseas trip, so that the focus is more on networking and bonding in an overseas incentive or corporate meeting, they can do all the business work on a virtual platform. Big challenges in the market. Flight scheduling is a massive, massive issue. Airlines are just not back to full schedules and not flying to all destinations. So there are very limited direct flights, and they're deploying smaller aircraft. And most organisers or planners cannot actually confirm the ground arrangements until the flight's confirmed. And sometimes those flights are not confirmed until 2 months out, which makes it difficult in locking in deals with hotels and venues and destinations. As I mentioned earlier, air accommodation costs are limiting on-ground programming. So they're still working with the same budgets. There are a number of clients that are actually not worried about budgets. They're basically, they give the budget to the meeting planner, ask them to work within that budget, and based on what they've done previously, the meeting planner is going back to them saying, look, this is what we can do for this amount, but if you want the same as what you did in 2019, this is what it's going to cost you. And some clients are actually agreeing to that without blinking an eye. So they are keen to get back into the marketplace and get these incentive groups off the ground. One of the other challenges is that a lot of longer haul destinations, anything that's 7 hours plus from Australia, often require business class seats as part of the corporate policy. However, this is becoming costly, so there is a bit of a shift towards premium economy and other options as well. One of the biggest challenges for the industry is that the suppliers, which includes airlines and DMCs, are taking much longer to respond to RFPs, and that's due to staff shortages and this suddenly huge high demand that's coming out of the market. The other thing that's really challenging, I think Esther mentioned this, is keeping up to date with suppliers. Who's still out there and who's still in business and who's going to be reliable to work with. So keeping your marketplace or your meeting planners or your clients up to date with your business is going to be critically important. The other thing that's happening in the market is that they're still experiencing that a lot of groups are receiving a lot of last minute passenger cancellations. It's up to 30%, which previously was about 10% in the lead up to group departure. But what they are doing is managing to replace those with different names. But that's something that hotels and airlines need to be aware of, because that's certainly a problem they're having. A lot of the cancellations are due to things like sickness, whether it's COVID or workloads taking place in the market. Excuse me. The big destinations at the moment is basically where there's direct air access and where it's easy to get to. And certainly within the Australia-New Zealand market, Oceania is number one. Australia, New Zealand and Fiji has become incredibly popular. Southeast Asia is starting to open up, and travellers are going to Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Bali and Vietnam as one of the hot ticket items at the moment. Europe is also popular, partly because of good air access. You've got a lot of the Middle Eastern carriers like Etihad and Emirates providing those direct connections to Europe. There's been a declining interest in the USA with a strong USA dollar, which has gone crazy the last few months. Northeast Asia is a real challenge because currently it's really not on the radar, and that's mainly due to the border closures and quarantine restrictions and the uncertainty about those markets. So this is going to be a bit of a challenge for Macau in the short term. And hopefully things open up and become a bit easier for Macau in the near future. Japan has started opening up, and there's been a bit of pent-up demand and interest in Japan. A few challenges with the cost, but it's certainly a destination that people are looking at. So it's the first of the Northeast Asian destinations that people are seriously looking at. There's no cyclical patterns anymore. A lot of incentive groups were doing USA, Europe, Asia kind of rotations, but now those patterns are completely out the window. And what they're doing is they're choosing destinations where they've got good access and those relationships in those markets. Selection criteria, number one, the biggest priority of all at the moment is direct air services non-stop. and destinations that are close to the delegate source markets. So you've got a lot of delegates coming from Australia, New Zealand. They'll try and choose destinations relatively close. They're looking at very high quality hotels. The one thing, and they're very critical of with a lot of destinations, is the lack of wow factor. Wow factor is really important. They really want to do something that has not been done before. And they don't want to see DMCs providing just standard packages and travel programs or leisure focused programs. That will not get you business. There's a preparation of destinations where planners have trusted and relied operators and hotel brands. So if there's an existing relationship in a particular destination with the hotels, the venues and the supplied DMCs, they're more likely to see business in the near future than if they don't. So having those relationships and those connections and having a trusted reputation is going to make a difference. Excuse me. And that's especially important as there's been so much massive disruption in the supply chain in recent times. So having that relationship is quite important. The other thing that the Australian market was talking about a lot of is having an in-market presence. That's where, where a lot of hotels and venues and destinations have representation in Australia or New Zealand. And they've built up that relationship over a period of time, particularly during the COVID period. And they've got those existing relationships. So they're turning to those people for advice and assistance in choosing destinations, products and services. They want to deal with my specialists. They're very critical of some DMCs that often provide basic leisure programs instead of true incentive programs, not really understanding the difference between the two. They're choosing destinations that provide strong business content. So some destinations, an example of that is choosing major destinations like Tokyo that are big business centers where that particular corporation has business or clients or customers, and they can run a strong business content program. Another important aspect, selection criteria, is agility and flexible. They really are after destinations, venues and suppliers that are flexible. I've talked about the challenges they're having with passenger cancellations and these types of things at short notice, and they need to be able to work closely with the operators to work around this. So it's more of a partnership now than it was before. The other aspect of particularly Australia and New Zealand is they have a strong interest in linking to major sporting events. And there's a lot of groups that are going that have looked at things like the World Cup in Paris next year, the Olympics, Grand Prix in Tokyo, those sort of places. There's probably nothing stopping Macau trying to profile its own Grand Prix and seeing if there's some linkages there. Safety is a key priority, keeping employees safe. Risk assessment is important. Sustainability, I've mentioned before. Content is changing a little bit. I'm going to focus on things like wellness, networking, team building, entertainment, and just very unique activities and things that just cannot be done by the average tourist. So that quite often be the deciding factor. Unique venues, cultural and outdoor. There was a lot of comment about not using hotel venues. They could be anywhere. They really want to use venues that are unique and different. One of the fortunate things about Macau properties is that you actually have very unique themed hotels and some really unique places for activities to take place, like the Eiffel Tower and the Venetian canals and those sort of things. Excuse me. One of the things I'm not sure if you know about, but the Australian market, there are some tax benefits if there's a CSR component to a program. So if you do have CSR components to your program in your pricing, it's worth highlighting to the Australian market in particular because there's some tax benefits to doing that. And the other thing that came up by a couple of planners was just the hospitality of locals, and they talked a lot about how welcoming Japan was in terms of its natural hospitality. Just being felt welcome in the destination is important. Perceptions of Macau. I wish I had a lot of good news, but I was a little bit surprised by the responses of some of the planners. But they basically were a little bit negative towards Macau, saying that they consider it kind of close a bit, which it kind of has been forced to by the COVID situation. There's a perception that there's just a lack of activities other than casinos. It's often used as a day trip only from Hong Kong. So if they're doing Hong Kong, they would look at Macau as a day trip. But Hong Kong has lost popularity, so it's very important for Macau to stand on its own 2 feet and come up with a full program, a 4-night program for Macau. Logistics are harder. Is one of the things I commented on, the lack of familiarity, but the new bridge crossing and how easy it is to go from A to B. So that needs to be pushed and profiled a bit more in the Australian New Zealand market. One thing they did all comment is the high quality and large scale hotels. So that's a really big asset of Macau. But they kept saying, because the groups out of Australia and New Zealand are quite small, that the big resort hotels are more suitable for large scale conferences and groups. So again, I go back to the point that they're looking for intimate, exclusive kind of arrangements when they stay at these big hotels, that they're not seen as being part of a group of 1,000 other people staying at a hotel. Macau has a very low profile in the market versus its competitors. I think the MGTO, they closed the representation a year or two ago. And so it has there's no existing relationship between the Australian New Zealand market and the Macau market. So that's a very important consideration moving forward. And there's a lack of familiarity of the product offering. So there needs to be quite a bit of work done in developing product to wow these Australia, New Zealand. And they will pay. They're quite happy to pay to go to Macau. I'll give you a quick example of a destination that was low profile is Perth in Australia. And they were pitching for some business out of New Zealand, so a top-end incentive group. And the incentive, the meeting planner said they're not really interested in Perth. You need to give us something that's wow. And they basically came up with the idea of doing a program where the delegates would be swimming with whale sharks. And that was a big sell. That was the wow factor. And that's what sold Perth to this particular group. And that same operator is now sending another 2 or 3 groups to Perth as a result of that product offering that Perth are offering. That's something for Macau to consider to track these groups. Market approach. The number one thing that came up with everybody is that they're just not familiar with the products and services in Macau. What's new? What does Macau offer? So definitely familiarization is a top priority for people to really become familiar with what the product is. And not just familiarization as the hotels, they kind of have a good feel for the hotels. What they want to know is what kind of experiences, high-end, unique experiences can be had in Macau that sets you apart from anywhere else in the world. There were a couple of operators that suggested smaller familiars where one agency takes a group of their clients along, making a more intimate and more tailored type of program. The one thing that they all said was that there's a sheer lack, and this wasn't Macau particularly, this was a lot of destinations, that there's a real lack of high quality images. So having a high quality image library of product for the mass market is really important. Professionally taken photos. A lot of the DMC proposals that they've seen, they said they're just very uninspiring. They don't motivate them to think about the destination. So part of it is the imagery and the content of that proposal. A really strong and informative information portal with comprehensive, informative and easy to navigate websites. Very tailored and concise proposals. Make sure that they're tailored and not generic. Quick response times is one of the biggest challenges they're having at the moment. But most important, it's just giving them good ideas, creative concepts and inspiring ideas to wow them, just like the whale shark, swim with whale shark experience I mentioned before. It was a wow factor idea. And that's what they need to kind of start giving a bit more attention to Macau. What's there other than casinos that's going to inspire them? Having sample itineraries for 4 days or 5 nights. Unique venues, outdoor spaces, away from hotel ballrooms. I'm not sure if many of the hotels in Macau do off-site catering, but that's something you might want to consider, particularly for these type of groups, and looking at some of the more unique cultural venues. Opportunities for socializing and networking. And they could be very casual in a bar, or they could be something a bit more formal, but they're really looking for ideas of how to get these groups to network and socialise more. They all said that Macau needs an in-market presence to build profile relationships, because that profile relation doesn't exist at the moment for Macau. There's a need for Macau to re-educate the market and really come into the market and tell them about what's going on and what's new, and give them ideas, the insights of what kind of product offering you have. Certainly webinars are still okay, but these webinars must be short, entertaining, informative, and highly interactive. They also recommended that if you're serious about the Australian New Zealand market, you should definitely bet AIM. AIM has been rerunning, I think, since this year, and it's certainly being taken as the most important platform for accessing this marketplace. And the other thing you might want to think about is considering engaging with some of the industry associations in the market. Cited, for example, is becoming quite active in Australia, and it may be a good alignment for you that are focused on the incentive market. So that's all I have today to tell you about. This is just a quick insight into who we spoke to. Also some of the intelligence sources we've got for this presentation. So thank you for your time. And if anybody's got any questions, please put them on the chat box. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions here by the look of it. Question from Bruno. What are the plans for IPM for the subvention program? I need to pass that on to Joanna. Hello, is there somebody from IPM that can answer that question?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, hello, Bruno. Actually, we have a subsidy program for the meetings and events, so I can send you the link later. And regarding the future plans of the risk and safety, yeah, I will coordinate with the management and Mike. Yeah, and yeah, we will consider about it.
Okay, that just relates to a question about Macau industry needing training in safety and risk management. So IPM just mentioned that they will look at that at future training programs.
Hi, Joanna. Can you send the link here? I think it would be useful for everyone to get the link now.
Yeah, Bruno, you just asked if a link could be sent.
From 19.
Sorry, can you
repeat? Program or a new program? The subvention program.
Our existing subvention program.
From 2019.
Yes, for the meeting and events, we have a subvention program, and I can send you the details later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question I've got is from Bruno again. Bruno, offsite dinners and events are crucial to gain competitiveness. What are the news in this area? Is that a question to IPM, Bruno?
Sorry, yeah, I would like to know if there are any plans regarding this topic that has been many years on the table, if we can get news on this topic as well.
Okay, well, maybe we will have this conversation with IPM offline. Let's respond to that. Okay, we'll do that for you, Bruno. Thanks for that. Let's see if there's more questions. I think there are. Nicholas, could I show the slide of the names of who was interviewed? Yeah, I'll include that in the PDF so you can get access to that later on. Okay, so thanks, Nick. Any other questions? Okay, look, I think we need to wrap up. We're running out of time. I want to thank you all. If you do have any specific questions, please feel free to send me or Esther an email or send them via Joanna. Those questions you asked about IPM, Bruno will take offline and talk to IPM and get a response to you. I just want to wish Macau good luck. I hope you see things opening up fairly soon, and I look forward to seeing you guys active in the marketplace, the Australia-New Zealand market. I'm sure Esther's keen to see you in Southeast Asia as well. But if you have got any other questions to ask us, please send them by email to us as soon as you can, and we'll get back to you. Thank you for everybody for your joining us today, and thanks to IPM for facilitating this session, and we'll be in touch again about our future
Thank you.
training sessions. Thanks, guys.